You keep calling yourself lazy because you cannot focus. You keep putting things off. Simple tasks feel strangely heavy. And by the end of the day, you're exhausted even though you feel like you did not accomplish enough. But there is another possibility. You are not lazy at all. You may be mentally overloaded. Laziness is usually described as an unwillingness to make effort, and mental overload is different. It happens when your brain is trying to process more information and the decisions, the responsibilities, the emotions, and the interruptions, and that it cannot comfortably manage. The results can look exactly like laziness from the outside. You stare at a task instead of starting it. You avoid emails. You forget little things. You lose motivation. You scroll because doing anything else feels harder. You sit down to work and somehow 20 minutes disappears. The important difference is that laziness usually feels like not caring. That mental overload often feels like caring about too many things at the same time. Your brain has limited work memory, and that is the mental workspace you use to hold information while thinking, planning, solving problems, or following instructions. And it is useful, but it's not unlimited. Imagine trying to cook dinner while answering messages, remembering an appointment, and worrying about money and thinking about a conversation from earlier, listening to a podcast and deciding what needs done tomorrow. None of these tasks alone may be overwhelming, and together they complete for the same limited attention. Eventually, your brain starts dropping things, and this is why overload can cause forgetfulness, indecisions, irritability, procrastination, and that strange feeling that your head is full even when you cannot explain exactly what is filling it. And that modern life makes this worse because very little gets a clean ending. Your phone gives you unfinished conversations, your email gives you unfinished requests, your work gives you unfinished projects, and your calendar gives you future obligations. And your brain keeps all of this in the background as open loops. You may be watching television, but part of your attention is still remembering a bill and an appointment or a message you forget to answer. And physically, you are resting physically, okay, but mentally you have 14 browser tabs open. Decision fatigue adds another layer. Every day requires hundreds of tiny choices. What should I wear? What should I eat? Should I answer this now? What task come first? Should I buy this? When should I leave? Do I need to respond to this notification? Repeated decisions making requires attention and self control. And as the day goes on, the ability can weaken. The brain starts looking for the easiest available options because it is trying to conserve the effort, and we mistake the conservation for laziness. Notifications are another major source of overload because the attention does not switch instantly. And when you stop one task to check a message, your brain has to disengage, process the new information, and then rebuild the mental context of what you were doing before. Repeat that enough times and a day becomes exhausting without much deep work. And this task switching creates a cognitive cost and fragmentations and fragments attention, and mental overload also changes how big tasks appear. When your cognitive resources are already stretched, something simple like folding laundry can feel like an enormous project because your brain is not evaluating only the laundry. It's evaluating the laundry plus everything else it believes it still needs attention. This is why an overflowing sink can feel enormous after a demanding day, and the sink may simply be the next demanding arriving after your brain has reached a capacity. And emotional stress uses the same mental resources: worry, conflict, uncertainty, grief, financial pressure, and relationship problems, and work stress, and all consume attention even when you are not consciously thinking about them every second. And if you are waiting for bad news, worried about someone, or anticipating another problem, part of your attention remains occupied. Concentration becomes harder and motivation can disappear. Outside, it may look like inactivity, and inside your mind may be doing overtime. So, how do you reduce the overload? Start by getting information out of your head. Write down tasks, appointments, reminders, and ideas instead of repeatedly trying to remember them. A trusted list reduces the need for your brain to keep rehearsing unfinished responsibilities. And keep it simple: one place for tasks, one calendar for appointments, and a short list of what actually matters today. Next, reduce the unnecessary decisions. Prepare clothes ahead. Repeat a few easy meals. Automate bills where appropriate and create routines. Every decision you eliminate creates more attention for that matters and for what matters. And then reduce the interruptions. Turn off notifications and do not require immediate action. Check messages at deliberate times instead of every time your phone makes a sound. And put the phone out of reach during focused work. Even 20 uninterrupted minutes can feel dramatically different from time broken into tiny pieces. You also need to separate urgent from important. Overloaded people often treat everything as equally immediate, and it is not. Some tasks can wait, some messages do not need an instant reply, and some problems belong to tomorrow. And some responsibilities may not belong to you at all. And learning to say this does not mean needing my attention right now is a form of mental protection. Another useful strategy is making tasks smaller. Clean the house is a vague and mentally expensive. Put dishes in the dishwasher is specific. Get my life together is impossible to start. Schedule the appointment is actionable, but when your brain is overloaded, reduce the size of the next step until starting feels like almost stupidly easy. That momentum often returns after action begins, and recovery matters too. you know, your brain needs periods where out new input. Watching videos, checking social media, reading news, gaming, or listening to something can be enjoyable, but they still require processing. And sometimes what your mind needs is boredom, silence, walking, showering, staring out a window, or doing one repetitive task without feeding yourself more information. Those quiet moments allow thoughts to settle instead of constantly being replaced by new ones. Sleep also matters because poor sleep reduces attention, emotional regulation, memory, and decision making, making overloaded easier to reach the next day. And finally, pay attention to how you talk to yourself. Calling yourself lazy creates shame, and shame rarely improves cognitive capacity. A better question is, what is making this task hard to start right now? Maybe the task is unclear. Maybe you are tired. Maybe you have too many competing priorities, and maybe you are afraid of doing it badly. Maybe your environment is distracting. Identify the actual barrier gives you something you can change. And you're not supposed to hold your entire life in your working memory while responding instantly to everyone. Consuming endless information, making constant decisions, and staying focused like a machine, your brain has limits. And those limits are not a character flaw. Sometimes the answer is not more discipline. Sometimes the answer is less input, fewer decisions, clear priorities, better boundaries, and enough mental space for your brain to finally finish the one thing before the next thing starts. Thanks for watching today's video. If you found out any information about the YouTube partnership program, please subscribe to our channel if you found value in this video. Without you guys, we can't do that. And I would really like to be a part of that program before February. So if you would, please subscribe and have a good day. Take care of yourself.